The Secret of the Sword. Hardly anyone knows that Prince Adam of Eternia can use the Sword of Power to become He-Man, Master of the Universe, not even his mother and father. But there is another sword in existence, the Sword of Protection, which also has magic powers. This book is the story of how the sorceress sent Adam to find the owner of the Sword of Protection. He set off through a time gate and found himself in the land of Etheria, ruled by the evil Hordak and his minions, the Horde. The owner, surprisingly, turned out to be Adora, Adam's twin sister, stolen as a baby from the king and queen of Eternia. And one last enormous surprise. The Sword of Protection turned Adora into Princess She-Ra, with all sorts of strange powers. But only he and the sorceress know of Adora's dual identity. In Grayskull, deep in the heart of Eternia, the sorceress tossed in a troubled sleep of the past. Of Hordak, leader of the evil horde that menaced the land of Eternia. In her dream, she saw him holding a baby girl in his arms.
You may have defeated us,
Was saying,
but you will never see this child again.
Adora!
cried the sorceress, and woke up, weeping. Through her tears, she saw a sword glowing in the air, beckoning her. She followed it through the corridors until it stopped at a closed door. Then suddenly the door burst open, revealing a mysterious time gate glimmering at the doorway. The sword fell to the floor,
Can it be Sword of Protection?
said sorceress, picking it up.
After so long.
Prince Adam in the kitchens of the royal palace of Eternia. He was baking spice bread by his pet tiger. Suddenly, he heard the sorceress calling him by telepathy. Seconds later, he and Cringer stood beside her in front of the time gate.
If this is a gate, where does it?
Asked Adam,
That I not say.
said the sorceress.
This door has never opened before.
You want me to pass through this gate and find someone on the other side, and you can't tell me who that is?
The sorceress handed him the Sword of Protection,
This sword will lead you to the one you seek.
she said.
Why,
Said Adam,
except for the jewel in it, this sword looks exactly like mine.
And like yours, it is intended for someone of a special destiny.
said the sorceress. Adam put it in his back, beside his own Sword of Power, and he went forward with Cringer through the time gate. Now Adam and Cringer found themselves in the beautiful world of Etheria, ruled by the evil Horde.
There's an inn.
Said Adam, looking about him.
We might get food there.
Inside, a minstrel was playing his harp, and Bo, the rebel, sat in a corner, Cowl on his shoulder.
Do you think he's a spy for the Horde, Cowl?
Asked Bo.
Unlikely.
Said the Cowl, looking at Adam.
Hordsmen don't smile.
The door slammed, and 3 troopers stalked in. Cringer dived under a table, and Bo's face grew grim.
Hordsmen.
He grunted. No one spoke as the hordsman sat down at a table. Then the minstrel began to play again.
I don't like that, son.
Said one of the hordsmen, and fired at the harp. Adam went. He picked up the hordsman and threw him into a barrel. Then Bo decided to help with the other 2. As the fight raged from one side of the other, Cowl joined Cringer under the table. When Bo and Adam had disposed of the 3 hordsmen, one to a barrel, they shook hands. Cowl and Cringer crept out sheepishly,
The Horde will send a force squad after us now.
said Cowl. Bo nodded.
You'd better come with us to Whispering Woods, Adam, and help with our great rebellion.
In the main hall of Doom Tower, in the Fright Zone, a messenger was speaking.
Mighty Hordak, I bring you bad news from the village of Thamor in Bright Moon. 3 of our troopers were defeated by 2 rebels.
Shadow Weaver glided up with more bad news.
A stranger from another world has come to Etheria, bringing with him the seeds of great trouble for the Horde. He is somewhere in the kingdom of Bright Moon, but my spells can no longer find him.
Bright Moon?
Hissed Catra, standing near.
Not Trooper Deck?
You may be right, Catra,
said Hordak. He shouted to a hordsman,
send Force Captain Adora to me at once.
then to villains around him.
We will teach this stranger it's not nice to cause trouble for the evil horde.
Meanwhile, Bo had taken Adam into Whispering Woods to meet Glimmer, leader of the rebels. She was the daughter of Queen Angela, who had once ruled Bright Moon. On the way to the camp, Adam also met Spragg, one of the Twiggets who lived in the woods. Just as Bo was telling Glimmer that he and Adam had taught 3 hordsmen a lesson in the village of Thamor, Madame Raz flew in with broom shoes. A horde force captain and 4 villains had arrested everyone in the village of Thamor because of the fight at the inn.
If the cultists will give themselves up, Hordak says he will send the whole village to the moons as slaves.
He'd do it too, the fiend,
Said Glimmer.
Surely we can save the village without giving ourselves up.
Said Adam.
I've a friend who might help.
He added quietly. Glimmer looked at Spragg and the peasant rebels nearby, and they nodded.
All right then, let's save Thamor!
She cried, and everyone cheered. At that very moment, the villagers were being loaded into the Horde slave transporter. Catra and the 3 other Horde villains, standing by their Horde flyers, whirling.
If Force Captain Adora was Hordak's favorite, she wouldn't be in charge, and we wouldn't have to do as she says,
Said Leech. Mantenna was very unhappy.
That's right.
He said.
We could have some fun destroying the village.
Then there was a shout.
For Bright Moon, attack!
It was Glimmer leading the little band of rebels to the rescue. The hordsmen were taken by surprise, but they soon recovered. The rebels were few, and the villains soon began to gain the upper hand in the battle. When Adam saw this happening, he decided that it was time for He-Man to help.
By the power of Grayskull!
He called and raised the Sword of Power. Seconds later, he was He-Man, and his cowardly cat had become Battle Cat. The fight began all over again. He-Man and Battle Cat fought hard, and to start with, they were winning. Then Mantenna's beam hit He-Man, and he fell. The beam was destroying his sense of balance. He managed to get to his feet, but then he found that Force Captain Adora was firing at him. He flung his sword at her, smashing her blaster, and she turned to run. When he caught up with her, she had her back to the wall, her sword out. He-Man pulled out the Sword of Protection and broke Adora's weapon with one swift move. As he did so, he saw to his amazement that the Sword of Protection was glowing. He lowered it, puzzled.
You must be the one I came to find,
He said.
Is that so?
Said Adora, smiling cruelly as she watched a hordsman taking aim at He-Man. He fired, and as He-Man fell to the ground, Adora said,
You're mine now, stranger. You and this curious sword.
Back at the rebel camp, Madame Raz and 3 of the Twiggets were holding hands in a circle round a little tree. Madame Raz was casting a spell, and Glimmer and Bo were watching anxiously, along with Battle Cat.
I hope Madame's spell can find He-Man.
Whispered Glimmer to Bo. Suddenly a picture formed at the top of the little tree,
Dearie me.
said Madame Raz.
Beast Island.
I've heard rumors that the Horde have a prison there.
Said Bo.
If that's where He-Man is,
Said Battle Cat.
let go.
Madame Raz started another spell, but went wrong. She managed to ship just above. Glimmer put herself aboard and helped up, and they set off for Beast Island. Once, Madame Raz hadn't got it wrong at all. He-Man was on Beast Island, imprisoned on a huge slab of stone by electro bonds. Force Captain Adora was standing beside him, the Sword of Protection in her hand.
I'm Force Captain Adora.
She said, swishing the blade through the air.
This sword feels as if it were made just for me.
I'm He-Man.
Said her prisoner.
I thought the sword was for you when it glowed, but I was to give that sword to someone who served good, and you serve evil.
You're the one who serves evil, rebel. I serve the Horde, the rightful rulers of Etheria.
You must have seen how the Horde treats people.
Said He-Man.
I've spent most of my life training in the Fright Zone.
Said Adora.
I don't know much about the rest of Etheria.
You should go and find out. Or are you afraid to?
Taunted He-Man.
I'm afraid of nothing,
Said Adora.
but I'll think about it.
She put the sword back in its sheath and walked thoughtfully away. On Madame Raz's flying ship, Glimmer and Bo were keeping watch. Cowl perched beside them on the rail.
Beast Island!
Glimmer said suddenly, pointing downwards. As everyone came to peer down, Bo said,
Uh-oh. We've got trouble.
it was Hordak, in his Annihilator, on his way to the prison. Shadow Weaver sat beside him. He smiled nastily as he saw them and punched a button. Seconds later, the little flying ship fell out of the sky. Its mast and sail had gone, smashed by a ball of pulsating energy from Hordak's cannons. The Horde leader grinned and flew on into the prison. Flames roared and licked at the crashed ship. Surely no one could still be alive. Or could they? A glowing bubble of light emerged from the fire. Glimmer's magic powers holding the rebels safe within its circle. Everyone gathered round as she sank to the ground, exhausted. Cowl watched her, worried.
The Horde might send men here.
He said,
Better to leave this area immediately.
I'll carry her,
said Battle Cat. Bo helped Glimmer into the saddle, and they set off once more to rescue He-Man. Inside prison, Shadow Weaver was praising Adora.
You have served the Horde well by capturing this stranger.
Said Shadow Weaver.
His name is He-Man,
Said Adora.
I'm proud of you too, Adora.
Said Hordak.
Thank you, Mighty One.
Said Adora.
May I return to the Fright Zone now? I have to do some investigating.
Of course.
Said Hordak.
Go.
As Adora left, Shadow Weaver said,
There's something here I don't understand. She should be watched.
Hordak brushed her words aside. Adora had always been a favorite of his.
She's loyal enough. The spells you have put on her make sure of that.
Madame Raz and the little band of rebels were still having a bad time as they struggled through the jungle on their way to the prison. One of the terrible beasts after which the islands was named came after them, shrieking its rage. First Battle Cat, then Bo tried to stop it, without success. Madame Raz tried to magic it away, but she got the spell wrong, as she so often did. The rest ran for their lives, but the monster landed right on top of Bo. But Battle Cat had a surprise in store. Before the monster could make another move, it was hit by one juicy fruit after another. Bo and Battle Cat fled as the monster tried to clear its eyes to see.
Thanks, Battle Cat,
Said Bo. Shadow Weaver's doubts had been right. Adora had dressed in the clothes of an Etherian peasant and had gone out on her horse Spirit. She was going to see just how the Horde did treat the Etherians. He-Man must be wrong. As she rode out through one gate, telling the sentry she was on a secret mission for Hordak, the rebels went in through another gate. Bo and Glimmer had overcome the guards and taken their uniforms. They were unlucky once more, however. From the moment they arrived at the prison, Grizzlor had been watching on a view screen. Now he pressed a button, and the doors near the rebels slid shut. A ray projector beamed in, and everyone cowered away. Then Bo shot an arrow up the narrow barrel, and the projector exploded. Battle Cat smashed a door down, and the rebels started to look for He-Man again. But Grizzlor still had an eye on them, and he told Hordak they were there. Meantime, Adora was in a fright zone, watching and listening. She saw slaves in a Horde slave caravan being ill-treated by the cruel troopers. Whips flourished to hurry the slaves along, and when one old man asked for water, he was flung in a pool. Later, she saw a peasant's house blown up, just because he said the Horde's taxes were too high. Adora was growing very unhappy. It looked as if He-Man was right. While Adora was out learning the truth, the rebels had found He-Man. But Hordak, Grizzlor, and Shadow Weaver had been waiting for them. Shadow Weaver paralyzed Bo, Glimmer, Madame Raz, and Broom with magic smoke. Battle Cat was tied up, unable to move. There was no sign of Cowl.
Welcome to Beast Island, rebels,
said Hordak. He-Man was struggling once more to get free of his electro-bonds.
You villain! What have you done to them?
They are merely out of action for a time. Better to ask what I will do to them if you do not tell me why you have come to Etheria.
He-Man was silent. After a moment, Grizzlor took the rebels off to a cell, and Hordak said,
We will give you time to think. Come, Shadow Weaver.
As the two villains went off, Cowl flapped down from where he had been hiding.
Can you get me loose?
Said He-Man.
Certainly.
Said Cowl.
Give me a moment.
He flapped off to the control console and started to peck at the buttons. All of a sudden, the force field faded and He-Man sat up.
Let's go find our friends,
he said to Cowl.
I've had enough of this place.
Now He-Man went into action. He pulled the door off the rebel's cell and said,
Time to go, folks.
Glimmer was worried.
We have to get to one of the Horde flyers. It's the only way off the island.
I believe the Horde's landing pad is to our right,
said Cowl. They set off, but it wasn't going to be quite so easy. As they came out onto the landing pad, Grizzlor came straight for them in a Destructo tank, all cannons firing. He-Man waited until it was almost on him. Then he raised his fist in one mighty punch. The tank fell to pieces, and Grizzlor had a stunned expression on his face.
Come on, He-Man!
Yelled Glimmer. All the others were inside there, anxious to return to Whispering Woods.
I've one more job to do. Take off and wait,
said He-Man. And as they watched from a safe distance, He-Man pulled and heaved and cracked off the whole mountain tip. Then he dropped it on the prison. A flyer picked him up, and as he got it, man said,
One prisoner without.
Hordak was now back in the fright zone, in his own quarters. He was talking to Shadow.
This He-Man is too dangerous to us. We must find out why he is here and how we stop him.
As he spoke, Adora came in. The sword of protection was in hand, and she pointed at them both.
I've been for my role area.
She said,
You lied to me. The Horde is evil, unjust. Repeat us.
She was angry, but she was also confused. Hordak had a hero. Shadow Weaver whispered to Hordak.
My spell on her has weakened. It has something to do with what she holds.
Then you must strengthen the spell.
Sick. Shadow Weaver glided over Adora, who swung the sword towards her.
Stay!
Oh, surely you would not harm me, Adora? Am I not like a mother to you?
Asked Shadow Weaver. She suddenly waved her hand across Adora's face, casting a spell on her.
Sleep,
said Shadow Weaver softly, and Adora crumpled to the floor.
First, this He-Man arrives, and now Adora turns against me,
said Hordak.
remember who she really is,
said Shadow Weaver.
Yes,
said Hordak, pondering.
yes.
I must find out the secrets of this sword,
said Shadow Weaver, looking at it.
and those of He-Man as well.
Hordak looked thoughtfully across at her. Then they both began to laugh wickedly.